6:01, we'll go ahead and call the meeting into session. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First on our agenda, we have approval of the agenda. We do need to add an item of your report of the board, so we'll have D, approval of non-union staff wages. That being added, is there a motion to approve the agenda? Motion for a second.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Under the agenda is announcements and recognitions. Are there any?
I want to recognize the Elm Hill staff for the night, game night last Thursday night. A lot of families were there. The interaction was great. Students and their siblings. And the other thing I want to recognize is each classroom made a poster by the door for that night. So if that teacher was going to do dominoes, their poster had dominoes, and they were fantastic. And I was part of the team that voted on them. It was really tough because the students and teachers did a really good job. They should be commended for it.
See any other announcements or recognitions? See none. Move on. Next on the agenda is public comment. The public comment period is not intended for discussion, problem solving, or debate. Rather, it provides an opportunity for the board members to listen to comments, concerns, or suggestions. While the board may briefly respond for clarification or when a timely response is necessary for the public's benefit, it will not engage in dialogue with commenters. Please note that public comments regarding personnel, students, or legal matters will not be heard by the board, but all comments are taken into account to help inform the board's future actions. With that being said, are there any public comments? If you're here in person, you can raise your hand. If you're at home, you can use the raise hand icon feature at the bottom of your screen. And I will call on you. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next on our agenda, we have the consent agenda. Bless you. We have the minutes of our regular meeting of February 16th, as well as March 4th and March 12th, and the financial warrants. So a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I have some a correction and some questions about the financial report. I mean, the questions about the March 12th meeting minutes.
Is there a second to the consent? Seconded. Okay. Comments or questions?
Yes. In the packet, it was written that it's on page 8 that a motion was made by me, Steve Geller, for adjournment. In fact, the motion I made was to exit out of executive session and adjourn. So I want to make sure that gets on the record that we came out of executive session and then adjourned the meeting. And I'm presuming that that's what everybody understood to be happening.
I mean, technically, we came out of executive session and then the board approved, then adjourned. Right?
Yes,
Approved the recommendation
Right.
of the council. Yeah.
that's right.
Which I would add that too.
However, it makes the most sense. I just want to make sure on the record shows that we exited out of executive session. That was the motion I initially made. And a couple of questions on the AP report. Is that what we're on now? I have some. Let's see. There are a number of items on that in the accounts payable report that I just being new to the board, I don't know what the context of them was. So I just want to run a few questions on some of those, if that's okay. One of them is Adventure Limousine. There are a number of, looks like trips from that. Can somebody explain what that is for?
Troy, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
So those are singular. I don't know if Courtney's there, but we can't give a whole lot of detail. Those are for single trips for special ed students, either here in around town or possibly out of town. We can't get too specific. It would be student identifiable, but in general,
I wouldn't want you to do that.
in general, that's what they're for.
Okay, and those are related to their individual education plans for those
Correct.
students? Okay.
Correct.
And probably the same is going to be true of the other vendors that, or a number of them. There's things like Bambino University and Mount Prospect Academy, Perkinsville Preschool, a couple of other World of Discovery, Sharon Academy. I didn't try to list them all, but those jumped out at me as not identifiable initially as special ed vendors, but can somebody explain what all of those or what the various purposes of those payments are, or what the services are that are provided?
So
Yeah, most of the ones I heard you say were tuition bills for special ed students to go to special programs somewhere. I missed a couple of the vendors, but the ones I did hear were is Courtney in the room?
or pre-K,
I think there's also
pre-K.
But also for special ed, because
two different
So-
things.
oh, okay.
Yeah, hi, Courtney
Hi.
Dexter, Sweet Student Support Services Director. So some of those locations are out-of-district placements in schools that we work with, and some of them are our pre-K program. So our community partners, where parents have chosen to place their preschoolers.
And the since we have our own pre-K program, is there a particular reason why we're sending kids?
We
to
don't.
other-
We don't have capacity to meet the need of all pre-K students. We do serve special education students in preschool in our program. But we have many students who are going to private programs, and the state covers a certain portion, Act 77, not 77, Act 153. 66, thank you. Covers a portion of their tuition monthly.
Mhm.
And so that's our payment.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That's all I wanted to know about that. Thanks.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
And I was just going to mention that if you, as a new board member, want to come into the business office and sit down and kind of talk through, that would be probably really helpful.
Susan's going to schedule that for me at some point in the near
Awesome.
future.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on the agenda. Next, we have report of the superintendent. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Peter.
All right, great. As you saw, Rick is joining from home due to weather this evening, but he will be dropping in on agenda items that pertain to him tonight. So first and foremost, Treasure Island is this weekend. So Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night at 7:00. If you are looking for something to do,
I think Sunday shows at 2.
I thought they were all at 7. Okay, well
Don't
that's
argue about
helpful. I'm gonna trust you on this.
That's what I heard.
I think you're correct. Sue and I were talking about this just before the meeting, and she thought it was all at 7. So
I could hear him.
we will double check just to make sure.
The flyer that we received, it was 2.
Okay, I think we're gonna say 2:00 for now. Okay. Anyone listening, if you're going on Sunday, double check. But will be great. Students are coming over this week from other schools to see it in person, which is great during the school day. Main thing I want to talk about was Act 73 and what's going on with Act 73. We just went through crossover for legislative session, and there really has not been the kind of movement that was needed to get this to the finish line during this current session. So what superintendents were talking about last week was this: we're probably looking at something that's going to extend into next year, and did not have enough people essentially come together and work to build something. I think a lot of ideas were floated. We talked about some of those here. But the idea that we're going to be working towards a new map in June does not look likely at all. So it's hard to say how we're going to end and essentially kind of move towards like maybe doing something in the next session. But I think there are more questions than answers right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think we saw a state that in some ways is holding on to the past and not quite ready to confront the present and build towards the future. That's my own personal read. I do think we need to make some changes in Vermont, and we need to look for a solution that isn't maybe 100%, because there is no 100% solution where everyone's needs are met. And that seems to be what stalls us time and again.
Seems like the biggest question in all that is whether Governor Scott sees it the same way, whether he will accept the fact that, as a state, we're just not ready to move forward definitively. And will he accept that, or will he still make good on his threat to veto any budget that comes to him without a definitive plan and a new map and all that? And what's the impact of that if he does?
And then you've got re-election, right? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So I will continue to, keep my nose to the grindstone on this and really be sure that if anything is happening, that we're talking about it relevant to us. But it's interesting. We have said we're in a really good position. We have a tech center connected to our district. We have a lot of services in town. We are a center for this region, and that's going to benefit us in the future as eventually something is going to happen, right? I think everyone can agree that we're not going to maintain our current structure for the next decade.
Sure.
But I also think it's wise that we're kind of positioning ourselves, waiting and watching, as opposed to trying to. There are a lot of districts that are out there like doing this, doing that, and then they're creating a lot of angst in their communities, but then nothing is coming from all of that. So I think given our position, given who we are, given I think what we would offer other communities, I think we're in a good position right now to continue to hopefully lobby in terms of like working with our legislators and professional organizations to help bring clarity. Last week, I believe it was last week, the weeks are flowing together nicely at this time of year. Alina and I attended the Great Schools Partnership kickoff for a grant that we were invited to take part in. Pretty exciting.
Sorry, excuse me, Peter. I have my hearing aids turned all the way up, but I'm still having trouble hearing everybody. The acoustics in this room are not great. So
Okay.
if people could speak up a little louder,
Sure.
I would
sure.
appreciate it.
So Great Schools Partnership is an organization, national organization. They the last work they did was around diversifying the educator workforce, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Before that, they did a bunch of work in Burlington, Winooski, supporting a project there. They are very community minded, and what this grant is a grant that we come up with an idea, we test it with them, and they accept it, and then we get a grant for 3 years to work with the community. So it's a community-based grant around some issue that brings community and school together. One of the things that we're talking about relative to this grant is chronic absenteeism.
Mm.
And when we look at one of the biggest impacts to learning, it's students not being in school, not attending. And it's been a huge focus nationally out of COVID. A lot of students during COVID, they just never came back.
Mm.
So attendance has been an issue from 2020 forward. It's been a big national issue, and it's been on all the different policy agendas, et cetera. When we look locally at chronic absenteeism, and we have Scott Farr, who is our truancy officer. Truancy officer really is more of a legal position where we have a Windsor County truancy protocol. We follow it 5 days, 10 days, 15 days. A letter goes here, a letter goes there. We contact the state's attorney, right? It's all fairly lockstep. The data does not support those processes really bring kids back. I'm not saying it's not important to do that, but chronic absenteeism is a social issue. It's a community issue. It's a family issue. And so the idea that we're working on and we're going to be developing, we haven't been approved for the grant, but we were invited. And I think Alina and I had a good feeling, right?
More than a good feeling.
Okay, more than a good feeling leaving the meeting that we would get this grant. And the idea would be to look at all of the agencies that are currently working to support families and students and think about ways to kind of connect them together. And we have a strong precedence with this with Project Action in town. So this wouldn't duplicate that. It would be really more targeted on this one issue. It would also look, I think, for us internally into the different systems and programs that we have, whether they're different kinds of check-ins with students, ways to help kids feel like they belong more. Obviously, making learning more engaging brings more students. For some students, the issue is not the learning. It's not the excitement of what's happening in the classroom. It's things that at home that feel insurmountable. So it's looking at ways to bring other agencies together, other community together, bringing parents together potentially. So we haven't figured all of that out yet, but that is something that we are excited about, and something that since our last meeting, something that we've learned more about, and we're feeling like that would be something that would really kind of help Springfield.
It's great.
Yeah. And that's my report.
That's your report.
I mean, that part of the report.
So moving on from there, we're on to FY27 budget review.
Great. The budget.
Oh, yeah, the budget.
Yeah. We have been talking about, trying to learn from the failure of the vote, and have looked at everything we did leading up to it. obviously, we are actively reviewing our budget again as we move towards a revote. In conversation with Rick and others, we're similar to last year. We feel like having a little bit of time to work to both hone this budget, the next version of the budget, as well as having a little bit more time to do outreach. We feel like the first Tuesday in May would be a good target for the revote. That still gives us some time. Should there be a second failure, we would have time to respond to that over the course of that next 7 weeks. Obviously, we would be hustling at that point, and we obviously we don't want to get to July 1 without an approved budget. Rick, anything you'd like to add to either that date or process?
No, the only thing I would add, you touched on it, is, the board has on their agenda tonight some new hires and some resignations, and we're seeing some of that come through. And we are, from a budgetary standpoint, we're processing those. For example, one of the positions, maybe both of the positions you're hiring tonight, were budgeted in next year as vacant positions. I don't know if we're going to be better or worse, depending on who we hire, whether I budgeted enough or too much or not enough. But there's multiple staffing maneuvers that are going on right now, and we will process that in the budget to come back to give you a more refined number of what we think we're going to need for next year.
When do we have to warn her?
I mean, I think that the technical timeline is 7 days before, but there's also absentee ballots. There's, the other considerations. I know Barb is here as well. Anything you want to share about kind of what your work will be?
Sure. So it is the absentees you want to be mindful of. We have 400 at the moment who have requested for any local. So last year you folks signed your warrant on the 8th of April, and that gave you enough time for 2 hearings. It gave us enough time to get absentees to the struggling mail situation back and forth. So your timeframe last year worked well. I think it would work again and still give you time for another opportunity if you needed it.
Yeah.
And you've got school vacation the week of the 20th too. It gives people time to get their absentee ballots and still hop over that vacation or decide in front of it.
Any questions around timing?
I couldn't quite hear what Barbara was saying, and maybe you already covered this, but is there a state requirement, minimum requirement as to when we have to have a revote?
How many days now?
No minimum. And what happens in the meantime? Do we continue operating on last year's budget amount?
Right now, we're operating on this year's budget. So
that's true. Yes.
This is the budget
Oh,
starting.
that doesn't start until
July 1.
July 1. Okay, right. I can forget about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Weird timing with school budgets.
What happens if it goes beyond July 1?
If it goes beyond July 1, you can keep voting, but you do revert to a percentage of your current budget. So it's not something we would want to do. We would continue to go out to vote and try to pass a budget. I don't know any districts that have been through this in recent memory. Maybe Rick does. Rick, do you want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we are required to have an approved budget. The longest I think I've ever heard somebody going was voting into December and January of the following year for that budget. Nothing limits us to the expenditures. What we're limited to is, excuse me, what we can borrow. We can borrow 87% of this year's budget for an operating budget. So we just have to play a game of chicken. If we don't have a budget by July 1st, the board's going to have to make some very difficult decisions of what expenses we will expend over the summer and into the fall until we do get an approved budget. But I believe in the power of positive thinking, and we'll have an approved budget on May 6th.
Right.
Anything else on the budget plan, Jess?
I just wanted to, because I also had a hard time hearing Barbara, but what was the date to make sure that we need to approve a budget to make sure that we can get absentee ballots out? I just wanted
Under like the first week of April.
first week of April.
We'll have control over getting those ballots out because we'll do a hand count and Rick's office will print those ballots pretty quickly. We're going to mail right away.
So I think my follow-up question to that would be, what are next steps for us as a board, right? Because that's basically our next meeting is April 6th. Are we anticipating another meeting?
Well, that's coming in the next agenda item.
Okay,
We're going to talk about that.
I will hold tight.
Glad you put him on notice, so.
That's good. All right, any other questions on this? Then we'll move to this one.
I will wait.
Okay, great. We'll move on the agenda. Next would be the strategic plan development and mission vision.
All right. Part of the strategic planning process is the development of a mission, vision, and core values that will drive everything that comes underneath it. And that is the board's purview. In terms of dates and times, so I've put together a suggested process for this, which is in your folder. And it has, in terms of April, right now, we are at March 16th, which is kind of like, again, beginning to talk about these things. What I'm hoping comes out of tonight's agenda item is the formation of a 2-member board work group. So not a quorum, but 2 members of the board who would want to work together to help craft this as we're just gathering all of this information. And then that work group would bring that information back to the board to discuss and talk about. In terms of what our current meeting structure and timeline is, and this pertains to your question around the budget, we are right now looking at April 6th as our big Springfield-wide town hall. That would be reaching out. This would not be the kind of thing where we would put some things on Facebook and say, please come, and then hope that we get a few people there. This would be, we would really focus on getting people to commit to coming, because we are setting forth a vision for a number of years. So we really need people here. So we are talking about, calling directly to the select board and to talking to staff members and really getting a commitment from people to attend and helping them understand the gravity of this meeting. There will be other opportunities to share, so everyone doesn't have to come to this meeting, but our meeting on the 6th would be an opportunity for the board to talk with, to present to, and to gather feedback from the community in the formation of the mission, vision, and core values. It's also going to be an opportunity for the core team, so that strategic plan core team. And there is a document in your folder you can review later, which describes the cadence of the core team. That is the advisory group for the strategic plan that is working to kind of like provide feedback. Essentially, it's a representative group of Springfield staff members.
What do you mean by cadence? I've seen reference to that term a number of times, and it's not used in a way I usually
I'm a cyclist,
associate it with.
so I think in terms of cadence, but it's really kind of the how quickly we're doing what we're doing and the pacing of it.
The rhythm, timeline of it. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's more the rhythm. So that the second half of that document in your folder, the core team document, shows the different meetings for the core team and the different responsibilities they'll have at each meeting.
Okay.
And the general flow of the strategic planning process will be gathering all this information, the board working on mission, vision, core values, the district leadership team, which is our principals, assistant principals, and district admins, will be working to put together a lot of this based on everything they know and they're hearing from their stakeholders. They will be that work that the district leadership team is doing will go to the board team for representative feedback. So we're not in a vacuum of leaders who aren't connected to the folks that are actually doing the work. And then eventually we'll complete this and we'll bring it forward to the board.
Great.
So I think that April 6th could be an opportunity to also potentially be talking about the budget as well and what the budget supports. So I think the focus will be the strategic plan. I think we should be talking about what other outreach we want to be doing between now and May 5th, other than the basic outreach that we've done.
So the April 6th one I would see is input into what we could possibly change in the budget or adjust. And then you're talking about like outreach about a revote, or am I misinterpreting that?
I was thinking, outreach about a revote and what that looks like. And I know, unfortunately, this is not a new thing here. And, I shared this in our last meeting. I took that kind of hard at first because I thought we were turning a corner with some of those things, but I think there's more work to do. So I think there's more we need to do to reach out leading up. I know sometimes citizen groups will form, so that may happen. And I don't know, we don't control that, but I think that could be happening probably as well. So I think the question for you all for the 6th is, do you think that would be an opportunity to talk budget as well, or do we want to only focus on, it could get a little muddy to be trying to be talking about a revote and talking about envisioning the future of Springfield in the same.
Could we schedule a budget meeting for the 8th of April for that week so that we take feedback from that community forum? Because if there's feedback around more support for ELA, that'll form a budget decision, right? So if we have that community forum with enough attendance, then we could have a meeting a couple days later to really drill down on budget information.
Are you thinking about a board meeting or another outreach? Because I think doing 2 outreaches in 1 week is a lot.
We wanted to do an outreach on budget.
We're meeting again on the 13th. So the 20th
the
meeting,
20th,
which is during break, we moved to the 13th. Because I'm gone, Troy's gone, you're Right, like,
I'm around this
yeah.
time.
Wait, what?
I know.
So we do have the 13th, and I think that's still, is that still within?
So that takes away a whole week where you could have gotten an absentee ballot. So last year you were signing the 8th of April.
I mean, we could also warn a meeting at any time just to, right?
Say sometime that week.
Yeah, I mean, we could
Before
warn a
the
meeting and do
10th,
that
right.
very easily.
Because at this point, I would really want to make sure we had, I know like a couple of years ago when we were going to the rapid voting, we couldn't take absentee ballots, but I really want to be conscientious of making sure we have the opportunity to grab those. Like this one.
My
So,
suggestion would be as long as you're signing somewhere in that week of April 6th. Signing it.
We could also look at the last week of March, first week of April, so the week of March 30th.
Or a community forum, is that what you're thinking?
No, I was just thinking if we want to have an earlier board
Oh,
meeting
yeah,
to just kind of warn the date so that Barb can then get into action. Right.
I think I agree with Troy in that it is a potentially really good opportunity to get feedback around what people think about the future of Springfield and the vision to help shape this budget. And I worry about having because if we warn it, we need a budget to prepare. So I worry about doing that before any type of town hall meeting, whether it's focused primarily on strategic or not.
I was thinking we could warn the date and then bring the budget later. I don't, maybe Rick
But I-
has a,
Don't think that's an
No,
option.
you're gonna have a number in there.
I think we have to have
Okay.
a budget for absentee ballots.
so what if we talk about,
I mean, I guess I honestly don't think, I mean, the vision work that we're doing, where we're working on, why do we exist, right? Like, that's one of the questions people ask when they're trying to create a vision or mission. Like, what is our purpose? Who are we serving? So we're asking the community for pretty high level, and then we'll ask them for some more specifics as well. But I think tying the budget to this, in my own estimation, maybe doesn't make as much sense. I mean, the purpose of this meeting on the 6th is not for the budget. The purpose of this meeting is really, we're building a strategic plan. We need the community to understand that we need to hear from them about our future. And they need to let the voices be heard either in person or through a survey online or through another avenue, which we'll be doing other things to reach out to the community.
I mean, the community forum's not, when we did our town meeting presentation, we talked about how important ELA at the younger level was to from the side of the district. There's nothing that would come out of a community forum that would change our perspective on something like that, right? So there's, I understand the community input on vision and where we want to go, but forming a budget and then turning around from that in a fast amount of time to go back out, I don't think is doable. I would say that we would make our own adjustments, and then we're still going to have that community forum, so we'll have the information if we need it in the future.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
or, I mean,
I think we've heard from the community in terms of, all the outreach we did leading up, we got a lot of feedback from the community in terms of these are the things that we value, these are the things we want to see happen. That's why I spent so much time talking about the systems we're building, because one of the things I hear a lot is we want our test scores to increase. That is a big issue for Springfield community members. The only way to do that is to build systems, to do the training we're talking about, to create cohesion across grade levels and across schools. That is the way that you make an impact on student outcomes.
So
Well, I'm thinking maybe, what if we talk budget on the 30th of March,
And ask for input.
not Wednesday, but Thursday, we could, I could do.
It's a scheduled meeting, right? That's the next scheduled meeting.
What was
The 30th is the next scheduled meeting.
Just as a-
our next scheduled meeting's the 6th, which is
But
the
if we
community
did,
forum. But
like-
We could meet before, on the 6th, we could just meet earlier. I mean,
Yeah.
we could meet for an hour ahead of the meeting on the 6th. That might make sense.
I'm just saying, and then
That
But
would give
not-
us enough time
not
to,
necessarily lock in on a number, plan on a
Right.
meeting a day or two
Well-
later to lock in the number. Just in case something earth-shattering should occur at this town hall forum, then we can potentially readjust. I mean, that's a big ask to turn around.
I'm just trying to picture what would come up.
I don't,
Yeah.
somebody walks in with $100 million to teach
Well,
us.
that's
I mean, if we're wishing,
That is very
right?
welcome.
I mean, if you want me to wish, I
That
really wish.
sounds wonderful.
My inclination is I'm not completely cognizant with the state laws about what you have to have in place before you can, warrant an article to be voted on. But before we get to that point, we want to be able to demonstrate that we're reaching out to the public for their ideas and support. And my inclination is that if we do that either as part of that town hall, particularly if we do that after the initial discussion or participatory interactivity, however we're thinking of doing that, about values, mission, and vision, that will create a context for then saying, okay, we know where we want to go in the future. Now, the difficult part for us right now is the transition to get there. And we're faced with this obvious problem of next year's budget. So while people are gathered there, and in the spirit of having talked about the bigger picture, values and mission and vision, I think it would be a more productive or constructive process to then have people suggest how we might look at the budget, what adjustments we might make as part of a longer term planning timeline, rather than throw another number at the public and say, here's, vote on this one. We've cut X amount from the first attempt. That would, I think, build more of at least among some of the communities, an idea that we're really reaching out to them to get their feedback. When you say you got feedback from your initial, sorties around town, hanging out at McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts, and I know that was probably a lot of fun, but and nutritious as well. But it really wasn't at that point how much you didn't anticipate that the budget was going to go down. So you weren't. I assume you weren't thinking about, what do people think needs to be cut. You were thinking about trying to get people on board to the bigger vision. So I think in a way we have to kind of rethink that and go back and say, okay, we know the reality now. The community has said no to this budget, but how do we revamp it in a way that doesn't keep us from moving toward that bigger vision and mission? And I would think it would be better to do that in the context of that kind of town hall event. That's my experience in that kind of a process.
I think personally, I would echo a little bit of Steve's sentiment. I don't think it needs to necessarily be with the town hall, but I feel like my question is what's our plan as a board to reach out to the community and get involved, somehow get feedback, because I don't feel right about putting out a budget without having some type of like, here's what we're going to do to try and reach out. Here's some opportunities to get in touch with us or whatever we're doing, whether it's separate from that meeting or I guess that's where I'm just not connecting.
Well, we've got a timeline. I mean, like, that's the real big concern. We have a ticking timeline, and we're gonna have to operate at 87% come July 1. And I understand the sentiment of trying to get community feedback, right, and input, but, you know, having sat on this board now for 4 years, nobody gives it to us. Nobody gives us constructive feedback. I welcome it, but you know, if you build it, they will come. They don't come. We've tried, and I'm really, really worried that because turning the budget isn't like snapping your fingers to create a new one. So it's making some quick adjustments, being welcome and listening continuously. But you know, if we're personally, from where I've sat, we can't reach the number and operate the schools at the number that the people want us to be at. Like it's not a plausible thing. And you know, who suffers when we start just randomly throwing up a number? It's our students in our community long term, because if we want our students to stay here, we need to make them feel welcome. And we need to make sure that we're providing an excellent education. And so trying to sit back and gather more community information now while the clock is ticking makes me very, very leery.
I'm not proposing pushing it out. My thinking is, so yes, I agree. Community involvement is poor. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't maybe have a meeting on the 30th or some other time ahead of the 6th or earlier the 6th. I'm just unclear on what is we need something, whether it's, I'm not saying we should move it out. I don't want to do that. But my thought is, I guess I'm still unclear on what are we going to do, right? It was voted down. Has information changed from the state? And we might not know any of that tonight, but like, when are we going to get more information? When are we going to learn more? And to me, waiting until the 6th to learn more, to then have a conversation is too late.
Yes.
That's my thinking in around the 6th. And that part of the sentiment that I wanted to make sure we understood. When are we gonna talk?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're working, Rick and I have been kind of looking at the budget and others too, to try to determine, you know, where could we potentially save any additional funding. And as we shared before, we did not create a budget where we added a whole bunch of things in it that we could cut. We used our entire surplus. We went through every line and looked back at actuals and honed things down that way and cut things down. So we don't have a lot of additional things that we feel like we can just kind of move off the plate. But we are kind of looking at some grant funds and would they potentially have an impact on the budget in FY27. So we are, you know, as Rick said, we're getting new information in relative to our federal grants. We are getting some funding from the state for our identification. So that is going to potentially have an impact in some ways. We don't quite know when those funds are coming, so that's still an unknown. So we're working on all of that and we'll be ready. I think what we need from the board is, in some ways, we need marching orders to know kind of what level we are going back out with. And I think there's work to do to engage, to help the public understand. But really it
Yeah.
calls to the five of you to help us understand, given your read of where we are. And, you know, I've heard kind of mixed things from, you know, people say some people just vote the budget down. They don't even look at it. They don't even really
Right.
look at the number.
To vote no matter what.
Yeah. So,
People, not, and
you know,
we're not going to
take
please
away
them no
vital
matter what we do with it.
services for students, because, you know, if someone's going to continue to vote no, and we're taking away things that students really need,
Hmm.
I'm not sure we're making any progress. So,
Right.
I mean, you all know more than I do. You know, I'm nearing a year here, and I kind of would rely on your expertise and experience here to know with a second vote. And again, we have time for a third vote if we need it, and potentially a fourth vote. But I think that would be helpful just to get like a pulse, I guess, from the board.
I think for me, knowing that we've gone through this several times since I've been on the board, we create a budget, right? So it's a budget, it's not factual, it's not actual, it's a forecast. And as we get further into this operating year, we start to get some clarity around what those numbers are actually going to be, or we can get a little tighter on what that dollar amount is. So it matures into a lower number because we have some actuality with it. And that's how we've gone back out in the past. And I'm in favor of that. I have, through this entire school budget process, been very disappointed in both the governor and the state, in that every thing they put out never mentions the students in anything they do. So they never talk about the impact on the students,
Yeah.
the educational outcome for them. And even in the posts I've seen on Facebook, it was, yay, the budget went down, but nothing about what it does to the kids in this town. And to me, that is horrible. And we really need to concentrate on what it does for the students here, because we're doing them a disservice.
And I'm gonna jump right on that and tie it back to Peter and your grant to get more engagement of our students coming to school. Like our middle and high school students in particular read all the stuff on Facebook about how horrible the school is, or we don't want to fund the schools. They read that. And then, you know, then why don't they come to school? Because they don't feel like the community cares. They just want to stay home and hide instead of trying to be engaging and out there. And, you know, like those comments, like I think play into student engagement.
I mean, we had a budget that was very low and then increased lower than the Social Security COLA.
Right.
We had cut positions. I don't feel like we need to go slash and burn on a budget. I think it's.
I won't vote for a slash and burn, because Peter and his administration, like you said, did a great job getting it down 1%. I think one of the problems we have is only, 1,600 people voted? There's 9,000.
1357 voted.
And how many do we have?
It's actually 20% of the voter checklist, which
20%.
is 60.
That's not a large percentage,
Right.
okay? And we only lost by 140 votes.
Right. I
Okay.
believe that.
My personal opinion, and this is not boards, we go back with the same budget. Because I think it'll go through, because now people realize how important it is, but also that we did try to get it down to 1%. Well, it was at 1%. There was weather considerations, and there was a lot of other considerations why people didn't vote.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get the same budget back, right? If it goes down, then we have our meetings. Then we decide who we're going to cut. Because personnel is our main, and I don't want to cut personnel, but we have nowhere else to cut. Well, we do have a few other slots, but, so my personal feeling is we go back to the same budget. Because you guys did a hell of a good, I've been on the board as long as Troy. And this is the first time I saw a real budget. Okay?
You've been on board longer.
Okay, 1 year. 6 months more. Okay, I'm the senior guy here, 6 months more.
Yeah.
But that's my feeling, okay? I don't care what the rest of the board, I'm willing to listen, but I think we put the same budget out because I think it will pass. I really do.
And, test scores, that's what I hear louder than anything else. Spending less money is not going to improve outcomes. And like, I'm sorry, Stephen, I'm looking at you.
All good.
If we have a social studies department at the high school of one social studies teacher, that's not gonna make us have better test scores in social studies. I know we don't test in social studies, but you're there and I'm looking at you. So over the years, we have cut and cut and cut, and this district is operating really, really bare bones. And when I look at other budgets and I look at other discussions in other communities and what they still have in their budget, I think our community members would be kind of astonished at what they're actually paying for indirectly. While here in town, we're operating leanly. And then I also am worried about, the cost of oil and that impact on next year's budget as well. So, I have a hard time saying go lower.
I said it when we approved the budget. I was so proud of what was brought to us at all the initiatives and the things that we're really focusing on at only a 1.9% increase. And I agree with Troy. It is unfortunate that all the stuff that's been put out there, if a budget doesn't get improved, what is that impact on the students? And we're not asking for very much. It's unfortunate from the state how it reflects as if we are. But I don't know what that means though, as far as outreach.
I agree with what you three are saying. I'm concerned though that the optics of, if we're saying we're not going to make a single change, we're not even going to look at the budget, we're going to just send it right back. The optics of that are not going to be in our favor, given the tone of the community that rejected it. I think we need to look at it seriously. We need to see if there are savings along the way that we could pass on. If there are things that we have in the budget that can be delayed to some degree. I've done that with budgets for many years at SEVCA that, look, we won't start this program until mid-year. We probably won't be able to hire anybody for it anyway, but you budget it for the whole year because you figure that that's what you want to try to do. And make at least a visible effort to see what, if anything, could be cut. And my gut feeling is that we could cut some amount of money that would reduce the amount of increase, not to the degree that the people who want to see it cut in half are going to be happy about, but that people who voted no because they were concerned, genuinely concerned about the continuing impact on taxes, would say they're trying. I think that's important. And also that process, in all the kinds of ways we've been talking about, gives us the opportunity to educate the people and sort of get out the vote process among those who we think are liable to change their mind, or just didn't vote this time around for one reason or another. And we make sure to commit ourselves to getting that out in the community. And one of the ways to do that is to bring the people in who support the mission, and we can then say to them, thank you for helping us to develop this. Now we need your help getting the vote out to pass the budget. It also, I think the most important thing we can do is to educate whatever part of the public, of the voters are willing to listen about what we have real control over, what part of the budget we have real control over that we could cut without breaking the law, breaking our contracts, having serious and irreparable harm on the educational integrity of our programs. And the ability to do that educating and say, look, you look at the whole budget, but we look at this percentage of it that is our discretionary portion. Tell us what you think we can cut from that. And that kind of process helps people to say, to at least think about, what they're going to do, rather than just go, mindless. I'm going to vote against it again. I think we have to make an effort to do it. And I agree with you. I would not support.
They're gonna vote no matter what.
Some of them are. Some of them.
We can take $6 million out of them.
Some, but we have to analyze what percentage of the community that is. I don't think it's not a majority.
But the thing is, because the voter turnout was so low, all right?
It's low every year though.
I know, but now that they know we're serious, okay, that we may have to make some cuts they don't want to hear, okay? And I'm not going to cut personnel. I'm not going to vote for cutting personnel.
I wouldn't either.
But there are a lot of non-mandated programs that we can do away with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to mention any of them right now. But there's some major cuts we can make in non-mandated, and I don't think that would fail to our kids.
It would tank.
It would tank.
It would tank.
You know what I'm talking
Student
about.
engagement.
It would tank. And
So we started off on a timeline discussion.
I know, now we're
So we
not-
come back to the timeline discussion. So we talked about the April 6th date for that forum and trying to warn by that first week.
And that, just as a reminder too, that forum is not just the board mission, vision, and core value, but it's also the core team having an opportunity to ask broader questions around our services, our where we're investing, like what kinds of programming do you want to see, all those things that would make their way into a strategic plan. So it's more than just, I mean, a lot of that will come out of questions from the board in terms of as mission and vision, but it will get more granular too. So there will be, the idea, we have more work to develop this, but the idea would be tabletops and things like that.
So I think we're committed to the April 6th date for the forum. There's two ways to go about it. You can have a budget discussion beforehand and go into that meeting and say, what do you think about our new number? Or you can have that forum without a new number and see if you get any information about how to form that new number. I think the first one is probably the better way to go.
I would agree.
And then you could vote for that number after the forum.
Yeah.
But I would think that be a better way to go. And that I think Peter and Rick have heard from us about sharpening pencils and seeing what we can do. So if that's the case, then do we try and meet the week before to have a discussion around that number?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that makes sense.
I just can't do the 30th or the 31st.
What about the first?
It's a cruel April 1st joke. But yes,
No, I was just joking. Actually, I was serious.
Maybe Wednesdays are tough for me. I might be able to squeak it out. Thursday's better, but if we have to,
What date are we talking about?
I'm opening it up. I'm trying to open it.
I can do Thursday.
This
Oh,
is, I was just opening. They were looking at the 30th,
The
second.
31st.
yeah. Oh, okay. A couple days later.
Thursday the 2nd.
Thursday the 2nd.
I think that's okay.
I'm opening my calendar right now.
How about you? You matter too.
I
Come on.
know.
That I'm free.
With a normal 6 o'clock or earlier.
Sounds great.
Good. Okay. What's that? 6? 6. Okay. Great.
That'll work.
We're on the
April
strategic
2nd,
plan
6
right
p.m.
I was just hoping out of tonight, 2 members could volunteer to wordsmith, data cruncher type of people that want to like to make charts.
now. I can data crunch, I can't wordsmith.
I don't know. You probably can data crunch a little better.
I'm okay with it, like everybody else.
I mean, all this comes back to everyone.
Right.
It's helpful
This is
to
just
have,
to get us an initial.
this will help to move the process. So I'll be in touch.
Alright, so we'll move on from that then, unless there's anything else. Next, we have February financial report.
All right, Rick, we're on the
Yeah, I'm trying to find it so I can share it on the screen here. It's a different. So short and sweet, actually, this is pretty clean compared to what we've seen the last couple months, although what we've seen hasn't been very dirty, but there's been some hiccups in there. But this is very clean. Revenue looks good. Expenses are all in line. As Peter mentioned last time, we're starting to get to the point where we're starting to see a real number. I think we're in the next couple of months, we should be able to do a hard forecast of where we're going to be. But everything looks good, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Renee? Is there a motion to accept the financial report?
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next on our agenda. Thanks, Rick. Next on our agenda, we have resignations. So we have Richard Campanero, Karen Henry, and Sarah Levine. Is there a motion to accept the resignations? Resigning at the end of the school year, I should say. You made the motion, is there a second? Steve seconded. Any discussion around the resignations?
I would, 1, thank you for the early notice, and 2, wish them well in their future endeavors. It's always sad to see people go.
Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, next on the agenda, we have hiring. So first we have Chris People, Special Education Diagnostic.
Great. Well, it's a few things. So Chris is known by many. She's been here for a long time. I got to meet her in May and had a great conversation with her as she was heading out. She has decided this is where she wants to be, so she's returning. We're thrilled to have her back, and I know a lot of people are excited. I was at Union today, and they were talking about her coming back. So word is out, which is great. Love to see that. Tamara is filling an open case manager position. She previously worked in the district in a support role and is returning after increasing her knowledge and obtaining her special ed license. So it's always nice to have someone who's been in the district and coming back after doing that, and brings a strong understanding of our schools and students, and we think she'll do really well in this role.
Is there a motion to appoint Chris Peoples and Tamara Kingston?
I can make a motion. Am I motioning or second? Motion.
Jess made the motion. Is there a second? Steve seconded. Any discussion?
I would echo Peter. Was extremely excited to see Chris back, coming back to the district. I worked with her personally a couple times, and then Tamara. Sorry if I say that wrong. I did notice was a graduate of Springfield, so that's always exciting too to see somebody from Springfield coming back to Springfield and being a part. So that's exciting.
All those in favor?
Great. Okay, we're on our agenda to the report of the board. So first up, we have board meeting and governance meeting dates.
So we put together a tentative list and feel like we probably, Sue and I were looking at this, we feel like this would probably be helpful for us to send some things out to you and get feedback before we really delve into it here.
Yes.
So we will do that. We were, based on the feedback you all gave, we were looking at a couple of governance meetings with board meetings so that we keep those on a singular date, don't have additional dates. And we also talked about the summer date as well for the retreat.
Right.
So yeah, we'll be in touch to nail this down, but we do want it, as opposed to this year where we were like, okay, it's time for a
Let's
governance
pick one.
meeting. When is it happening? Let's get these all.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sue, anything to add to that? Before you leave tonight, Sue has a new puppy. You have to see the picture.
Oh.
Sue has a new puppy.
A puppy?
Yeah. You have to see the picture before you leave tonight.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
She's adorable. Absolutely adorable.
sure.
Moving on in the agenda, next we have policy adoption. So we have second reading. So this would be with a motion to approve these. These are updates from the VSBA. So we have.
I hate to be that guy, but since I volunteered for the policy committee, I felt compelled to dig into the policies that were coming up and not having had a chance to look at them in the first reading. I have some questions and comments on some of them. I don't know if we want to go through those individually now or table, or I don't know how you would do it, table the second reading until the policy committee can meet and we can do it on that level and then bring it back to the board as a whole, or you want to start going through whatever I have. Some of them are questions that may be answered easily, but some of them are more awareness of some word changes that would be helpful, at least in my experience. So I don't know how much in detail we want to get into on the policies before the committee has a chance to hear what my ideas about them.
All the policies already been vetted by the attorneys from the VSBA. So as far as wording and everything else, it's already been gone through. They've done all the work for us. So I would say, being prior on the policy committee, we went through all these when we met once before. If we had a question, we talked about it. Okay. But they've been all vetted already legally. So if we make a change, if we make a change now, we have to go to our attorney to see if it's approved. So
The language changes, but we could answer questions.
yeah, we can answer questions. Or maybe,
And maybe you're going to say the same thing as would it make sense to send whatever one's back to the policy committee for us to just answer questions,
Are
or
there any you don't have questions on, Steve?
What's that?
Are there any you don't have?
Yes.
On?
Let's see. The first one, public participation. All right.
Or which ones do you have questions on?
Which ones do I have questions on? That's easy. Drug-free policy. harassment, complaints about personnel, a very small nitpick about transportation wording, which was insignificant but awkward the way it's worded now. The grievance protocol, and in that one, there's actually, well, in several of them, there are contradictory, different, not just wording, but different examples of, sort of what would be, what classes of groups shouldn't be subject to harassment, for example. And there are places where two different lists exist. So it's inconsistent. There's some inconsistencies in a couple of places. And I think that's true with, there's a difference, there's an inconsistency in some of the requirements for response to grievance protocols, grievance procedures, in terms of how long it before investigations need to be initiated and completed in several different parts of the policy. So all of those are
Just those.
and I have just one question on the section 504. Sorry, is that the Title I policy? Maybe I can ask that and get that out of the way. There's a section there. It's on page 37
Which one?
of the packet.
Policies, the Title I.
This is the Title I.
Yeah, what's the number?
E1.
See, so
Huh?
like if you go back,
What?
go back to the agenda.
Yeah. Oh.
What policy number? A,
Oh,
B,
okay,
C?
gotcha.
It's E1. It's
Should I read through them again? Which ones I have questions about, or just?
Well, no, you were trying to ask one in particular.
Oh,
We're
about,
pulling it
yeah,
up. Which one?
E1,
E1.
parent and family engagement.
What's the question on that?
Well, are we going through all the questions or?
I want to hear what this
Okay.
question is.
Well, this was just one that maybe can be answered very quickly, and I don't, it's the only thing about that I didn't understand. And that was, there's a reference to what's written is student/led LED conference.
What number? So where are you at in
Wait,
the policy?
I'm at, I know I'm on page 37 of the
So
packet.
go,
Wait,
where
is
was
the
your
page
question?
number? I'm looking for, oh yeah, there it is.
So it's,
It's
It's
part one,
part
general
one.
requirements and expectations. And it's the, and it lists the events.
so I believe it's page 2 of the policy. Part 1, number 1, right? That's where you have highlighted.
Part one, number one, item one, and then there's 3 bullets.
Yep.
The third bullet is listed as student/led conference. And there isn't any other place in the policy. The other items are described in more detail. I don't see anything about the student-led conference anywhere. I didn't understand how that fits in and whether it's an actual thing in.
So these
That's
are
part
just
of-
things that this is a policy where we put some of our own information in. So most of the policies that you see are verbatim.
Our boilerplate,
from the
VSBA, yes.
VSBA, like
I'm familiar with that.
100%. This policy, we put some of our own information in here relative to the activities that we do. Alina, who is our Title I coordinator, can share a little bit more about that. Do you want to share
Is the whole document or just this one section?
that one section?
So these are just, when you have Title I funds, we have opportunities for family engagement. that one way we can have our open house and explain how our funds are used, and another way we can have different events, kind of like the event that was at Elm this past week. And then one of the big Riverside events is the student-led conference that brings quite a few parents in because the students are leading their own conference.
Students would lead the conference.
Yeah.
Okay,
And,
that's,
and sometimes they lead their own conference with another teacher or another adult, but these are just events to encourage family engagement that do use and utilize Title I funds.
okay.
Does that answer?
That, I would have thought there'd be more explanation about sort of as the other items have later on in the policy, but that's fine. That explanation is fine. The other one that is really I would have to say a nitpick is in the transportation policy. Let me,
So you had 5 that you had taken, wanted to go through. We can table those and send them to the policy committee, and then just approve the 4 that.
that's C3.
So if that were the case, is there a motion to table B3, B5, B22, C3, and C14? Send them back to the policy committee for Steve to review? Steve made the motion, is there a second?
B3, B5, B22.
C3,
I could probably fix C3 right now. It's just one word that's a problem there.
okay, what's the word?
And that is, let me just find the reference. It's on my page 26.
This is C3.
All right, it's in administrative responsibilities. And under that, the heading says the superintendent or designee shall, then it lists 1, file the policy, 2, establish bus routes, etc. 3, may consider. So it doesn't fit the sort of structure of what's being said, and shall and may are contradictory.
Let's kick that one back to the policy committee.
So
Yeah.
we can decide just to cross out the word may, because every one of the others are all fine.
Is it that needs to be better?
I think if we're changing anything, then it needs to go back because it's
Okay.
already in the second reading.
All right,
So
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So there was.
sorry to be a pest, but
That's okay. There was a motion to table and the second, right? I have a motion in.
I'm a motion.
Steve made a motion, so I need a second. Steve seconded.
and just to make sure, if we said B3,
B3, B5, B22, C3, and C14 would be tabled back to the policy committee.
yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so then for second reading with action tonight, then we would have A21, public participation at board meetings. C23, student clubs and activities. C24, student athletic programs. And E1, parent and family engagement. Is there a motion to approve those policies?
I'll second.
Steve made the motion, Steve seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think that helps a little. And then we have 2 policies for policy rescission. So this would be removing. So we have B21 professional development and C22 student athletics clubs and activities, which was replaced with C24. Is there a motion to rescind those policies? Steve made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion around that?
So we approved 24, so we can remove 22. B21, is there an impact if we remove this without approving something above? You're like the policy guru.
No,
Okay.
that was a recommended supervisory union, and we were a school district.
Mhm. Mhm.
Any other
question.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. That means we are on to the added agenda item, which was approval of non-union staff wages. So this would be any staff member who's not part of the union. So there are staff members who are union members, so they would follow the contracted percentages for both
Support staff
support
and
staff and professional staff, so they're
So
would
the
match
support
contract.
staff would be 4.75% for non-union, and professional would be 7%.
Is there a motion to approve that for non-union employees?
Moved.
You made the motion, is there a second? You've seconded, any discussion around that? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's it for our current agenda. So our next meeting would be March. We don't have a meeting. Okay, our next meeting would be April 2nd at 6 p.m. here for budget.
Thursday meeting, yeah.
The Thursday meeting, special meeting, and then April 6th for the community forum around strategic planning.
So it's not the 30th, instead of the 30th, we're doing the 2nd, is that what I'm, okay. I thought it was
Does that work
both.
for you?
Huh?
Does that work?
I believe that works, yeah,
Okay.
Is there a
as far as
motion?
I can tell from my calendar, yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second,
Fast
you need
second.
a second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
To order copies of this program, please call 802-885-6248. This program was created using equipment of SAPA TV. The views and opinions expressed in this video are not necessarily those of SAPA TV or its staff. Visit us online at www.sapatv.org. Thanks for watching.